whoever, they're going to give him help in blocking, whether it's Chandler Jones or J.J. Watt or whomever decides to try to pressure that side of the Titans' offensive line.
I think the pressure resounds on Todd Downing, because Todd Downing's got to put the right formation on the field to get him if he needs help. So you go into a 12 personnel, that's one back, two tight ends. So now that helps Quisenberry if he gets in trouble. So it's not just on Quisenberry to block somebody. It's about Todd Downing putting him in position to be successful. So,
speaking of Downing, Jason Fitz is a real good buddy of mine, but probably the biggest Raiders fan that I know. And I asked Fitz when they hired Todd Downing, because he spent a year as the offensive coordinator of the Raiders, and Fitz absolutely can't stand Todd Downing. Now, I think that Arthur Smith kind of laid the groundwork for what Downing should do, and it's just pick up the keys and go with it. And I think Tannehill, too, has a big say in what they do offensively. But is there a concern about Todd Downing going into today's game?
Not from that perspective.
No.
I think, with all due respect, I think that's absolute garbage. because
well, at least he said with all due respect.
No, and Jason, I like Jason.
Yeah.
He's been very kind to me, through the years. But, I don't. That's a fan talking.
Absolutely.
I remember Greg Williams.
Yep.
One year went to Jacksonville, and they were terrible on defense. Mm-hmm. If you don't have players in this league, I don't care how good a coach you are. In fact, sometimes a coordinator's best coaching comes when he has inferior talent. Todd Downing has a loaded offense. Yep. So I don't know what to expect from him. But again, he was around Arthur Smith. He knows what they have. They've got much better personnel than he did with the Raiders. So that doesn't concern me.
And you said Arthur Smith. He laid the foundation and he laid the blueprint of what this Tennessee Titans offense is. All he has to do is kind of follow that blueprint. And so if he follows that blueprint and finds the matchups like Arthur Smith, then I think he definitely can be successful. I just think that the reason why a lot of people are struggling with him being the offensive coordinator is because they're not familiar with him. Once they get familiar with what he does in Arizona Cardinal games and earns the fans' trust, I think he's going to be successful.
What do we make on the offensive side of the ball about Chester Rogers? The depth chart has him listed as the slot over Josh Reynolds. I said after the 2 Tampa Bay practices, I thought there was a legitimate relationship there with Tannehill. I look at Ferkser and Rogers, Mark Howard, as kind of big keys offensively, because we know everybody is worried about Julio, AJ, and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think those are their outlets. And you look and you see, and the Titans haven't gotten a whole lot of production from the slot position the last few years. They made a big signing, didn't work out with Humphrey, and he moved on. But Chester Rogers had a great camp. I think he's going to be a real asset for them. And Ferkser is a guy, a developmental player who keeps getting better every year. He worked on his body. You can see that he made the necessary changes. He wants to be a better blocker, and he has worked himself into being a starting tight end in the NFL. I love the story, and I don't see him regressing at all. I think he's going to be a huge asset to them.
I think the reason why Chester Rogers has been so successful in camp into now is because he's been consistent. I mean, when you have a wide receiver that's been consistent, he's in the right place at the right time, and your quarterback trusts him, he's going to look for you. I mean, if you look in camp, who was he looking for when it's 3rd and 5? He wasn't looking for A.J. Brown. They wasn't there. He wasn't looking for Julio Jones. He wasn't there either. But still, he was still looking for Chester Rogers. That just shows you that I have trust in you. I believe in you. I know you're going to be in the right spot. I know you're going to make the play. And if Tannehill can trust him, and then you add those 2 big dogs on the outside, that's a bomb waiting to explode.
Now, here's the important thing you're going to learn, Mark, about working with Chris Sanders. And that is, offensively, Chris, how important is it that the Titans win the coin toss today and get the ball?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, it changes the momentum. You hate it too. You absolutely hate it.
How does it change the momentum?
There you go.
Most coaches
argument.
want to receive in the second half.
I'm gonna tell you why. We played the team the first game. Okay.
Yeah.
We took the ball. we ran it down their throat and we scored. Look at their body language on the sideline. Let me tell you something. If the Tennessee Titans have a 15-play drive, look at Arizona's body language when they walk to the sideline. 100%.
That might be true on Friday for NBA, but I don't see it as a big deal with the NFL.
Okay, I'm gonna give you. Who had the ball on Thursday night first? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right?
Tampa Bay had Tom freaking Brady.
Doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
could
I
be
don't think
me.
it would've mattered.
I mean, the bigger issue is that Tampa Bay had the ball last. Now that they had the ball first.
Yeah, exactly. It's who has the ball last, not first.
You baited me with that.
I mean, so my girlfriend last year starts listening to the show, and she hears
my
one
God.
week Chris Sanders say the key to the game is to win the coin toss.
And it worked.
2 weeks later, she hears Chris Sanders say the key to the game is to win the coin toss. And I have never been able to let that go.
And guess what going to be the key of this game is? Winning the game toss. Winning the toss.
Wow.
100%. It's the momentum, man. You ask any football player that if you had the momentum in the game, that's the team that's going to win.
When you played on the Titans, and they called it in the air, and you
Yes.
guys won, and Coach Fisher wanted to defer to the second half, did you stand there and say, you know what, Coach Fisher just cost us the game?
Man,
Do you wake up and forget where your toothbrush is?
I love you guys, man. Golly.
The worst part about
my
it, too,
gosh.
was when Chris was going off about how important the coin toss was, the phone lines blew up with everybody siding with Chris.
Absolutely.
And then TD sided with Chris, too, about the coin toss.
TD, help me out, man.
It's
Call
so
me, man. I
difficult.
need your help, boss.
We'll turn it on to the other side. We'll take a look at the defense. We'll go inside the playbook presented by E2 Roofing coming up next. We're live at Rock Bottom Brewery. Again, every home game this season. We will be out here on the rooftop. Chris Sanders, Mark Howard, yours truly, breaking down the Titans pregame show. Again, it's ESPN 1025 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app as well as YouTube and Twitch and Twitter as well. So check us out there. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Inside the Defensive Playbook is presented by E2 Roofing. Trust the roofers with integrity. E2 Roofing, a veteran-owned and operated local Nashville roofer. Mark Howard, let's say the end of the world happens, the Titans lose the coin toss, and Arizona gets the ball to start the game. Now, Kyler Murray, as we all know, is a threat in the NFL, taken number 1 overall 2 years ago. DeAndre Hopkins, as we all know, if you've watched a Titan game over the last 10 years, is a humongous threat. They've added Rondale Moore in the draft, A.J. Green from Cincinnati, Rodney Hudson at center from the Raiders. What do we think of Arizona's offense, and what are kind of the keys on defense for the Titans today?
Well, I think, first of all, Arizona doesn't have a great pass-blocking offense. So let's get that out there right now. And their interior guys, Justin Pugh and Justin Murray, we're talking all about, the secondary's great, the pass rush is this. You know what is markedly better on the Titans this year? Their D-line. Danico Autry, Tier Tart had a great camp. Autry came over from the Colts. Jeffrey Simmons seems poised for a huge year. If they have a big year, the guys playing behind them will. Chris can tell you what happened when Javon Curse got here. Chris can tell you when Albert Hainsworth was at his height. Everybody behind him benefited, or next to him.
I agree with you 100%. I think the key is going to be Autry, Dupree, Simmons, Landry, Tart, and actually Byard. And when I say that, when I talk about that
don't
front,
forget Malik Hooker. Malik Hooker.
Absolutely.
This is a big year for Amani Hooker.
Yeah. And I think, too, is we got to get them in second and third and long. And the way you do that is that defensive line has to bat the balls down. I mean, if you look at Terrell Williams, the D-line coach, he consistently was doing drills about batting balls down. So when you're batting balls down in the second and 10 and third and 10, now you put the pressure on Kyler Murray to make him make mistakes. But one thing you can't do is if we collapse the pocket and he gets outside, that's where the problem is going to lie. So what they have to do is they have to do what they did against the Ravens about 2 or 3 years ago when they were in the playoff games. They kept Lamar from getting outside. So if they keep Kyle Murray from getting outside, then they can be successful and keep him third and second and long.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Shane Bowen, mush rush Murray, which means it's all about containment today and not really sacking the quarterback. And again, they just want to keep him in the pocket, and if he beats him from there, God bless you.
Yeah, but the only thing that concerns me is the secondary. Now, if they don't get to Kyler Murray, you got some dogs on that offense. I mean, we got A.J. Green, we got Hopkins, we got Isabella. We haven't talked about. There's a fast receiver.
Yeah.
So Elijah Molden and those guys are going to have to cover.
But you don't want Murray breaking containment,
Absolutely.
Extending the play, because then for DBs, show could be over.
Well, I was going to ask, how would you guys line up against Hopkins here? Because we know Rabel wants to play man-to-man, and they went out and got a bunch of man-to-man corners. So you're going to have Christian Fulton is probably going to be matched up with somebody. Maybe you give him some help. Jack Rabbit Jenkins is going to be matched up probably with A.J. Green and no help for him. I mean, probably Jack Rabbit, you got him, that's it. How would you line up the second?
I just think I was talking to TD because we were talking about that, about how they're going to play Hopkins and Green. He was telling me that they're going to play sides. When we talk about play sides, wherever A.J. Green goes, that's where they're going to play. And if wherever Hopkins goes, that's what they're going to cover. So I just think that Shane Bowen has to understand what the situation is. If it's third and long, who are they looking for? If it's second and 10 and they throw the ball, who are they looking for? So if they're looking for A.J. Green or if they're looking for Hopkins, then that's when you start to get the double teams. And I think that if they did their homework, they know that what Kyle Murray's looking for when those situations happen.
I just don't see them playing a lot of man today.
But they want to, though.
They might want to, but I don't think it's the smart play against a quarterback like Murray.
Yeah, but then But then we got to understand, too, they don't have a shabby running game now. I mean, with James Conner coming over, he's not a bad dude. You got Edmonds that's over there. I know,
it's average.
So you telling me those cats are average?
Yeah,
I think they're average. I mean, I may regret this at 4 o'clock, but I think they're average.
Can I do the Floyd Reese laugh?
I'm way more worried. I'll tell you what, I'm way more worried about Kyler Murray running the football than I am those two guys running the football.
James Conner's going to get his 70, 80 yards. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Edmonds is a good receiver, but again, I'm not. Those aren't the guys I'm worried about.
No, I'm not just saying worried about. But if you get guys like that that's going to stay in front of the chains, then that change then it allows
obviously.
you to do so many things.
I feel personally like the Titans have played Lamar Jackson over the last 2 years 3 times, and they've won 2 out of the 3. And the one game they didn't win was the game where Lamar Jackson beat him with his legs.
Right.
And that's how I'm approaching this game. I think that Lamar is better than Kyler, but Kyler's got better weapons than Lamar does. And I think to myself, can they play the defense they've played against the Ravens that's worked, which is, as Mark said, kind of mash it up a little bit. But can you do that when it's not Hollywood Brown, it's DeAndre Hopkins?
But see, the difference between this is when we were playing the Baltimore Ravens, they didn't have any guys that scared you on the outside.
That's the point.
I know they had Hollywood Brown, but now you look at the Arizona Cardinals, they got some dogs now. I mean, just like what we talked about. And, even in the slumber, you have Isabel, you have Moore. Those guys can beat you by running those teams because there's nobody in the slot that can run with those guys. So, we just got to be careful. We just got to keep everything in front of us, but we can't be scared. We got to be aggressive.
Mark, how worried are you? Rookie corners, we don't know how much Caleb Farley's going to play today. Elijah Molden in the slot. How much? And Fulton really didn't play much last year, so I think he's kind of a rookie-ish. How concerned are we with the youth in the secondary?
Well, I am concerned. This is a good receiving core, as Chris mentioned. And what kind of pressure are they going to get on Murray? That's another question. Again, I still think they're going to play some form of zone, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I thought Molden had a good camp. I still think he's raw, and this is Fulton's another chance for Fulton to really prove himself and to show that he's really improved.
Do you think he's ready for that?
Yeah.
I look at the Titans on defense, and I wonder, to the defensive line point Chris had about batting down balls, Murray's height and arm angle in which he throws the football. How effective do you think a guy like Simmons, who has made a living out of batting down passes or tipping passes in the air, how big of a role can that be?
I mean, that can be huge because if you look at last year and the year before, that's a lot of things that he did. He always batting down balls. But we're talking about we're not talking about another guy that can also bat some balls down too, and that's Archie from the Indianapolis Colts. He's a big physical guy, jump up and bat the balls down. So if they could consistently do that and keep them in third and long and second and long, I think it'll help the secondary by doing that.
Yeah, I think Murray is still a work in progress, and that's one of the things I think that worries Arizona is his release point sometimes, because he turns himself into a 5'9" quarterback. When he does that, if he's not over the top. So yeah, that is obviously a concern. When you do that, you're a lot more susceptible to having your passes batted down at the line of scrimmage.
How do we feel about the pass rush with Landry and Dupree paired together? Look, Clowney last year was a bust. And this year, they can't afford for Dupree to be the same level of bust. But at the same time, I think there's probably – I'm a little nervous. I think Dupree's going to be much better than Clowney or Beasley. But I'm a little nervous that maybe Dupree's not the answer to the problem like they're paying him to be.
I think they'll have more sacks than last year. But, beyond that, I'm just going to take a wait-and-see attitude. I think less snaps for Landry will actually be good for him. I'll wait and see if he's added to his repertoire. He was kind of a one-trick pony. He was kind of Javon Curse, with the outside move. And at some point, you got to add something because they're waiting for you. So, I think the pass rush will be better. I just don't know what Dupree is going to add to that. A lot of people argue that Dupree was a byproduct of T.J. Watt.
Yeah, but and I'm concerned a little bit about Dupree.
He could. A lot of people think that Dupree could be the football version of Matt Duchene.
Oh no!
Who look good with by being on a line with other good players.
But which Dupree is going to show up? That's what's going to. Is it going to be the one that before he got hurt at Pittsburgh, or which one is it going to be to hurt Dupree? So which one are we going to see? If we see the one that we saw in Pittsburgh, he got hurt. Oh my gosh, we got a bargain on our hand.
And I'm going to say this: the Steelers, the second that he got hurt, were not the same team after that last year. I mean, they were undefeated when he was on their team. And they couldn't beat the Bengals without him. Now, the Titans couldn't beat the Bengals either, so I don't know exactly what that'll tell you. The inactives, who's in, who's out, we'll have that. Plus, Mike Vrabel gives us his key to the game. We'll do that coming up next. We're live at Rock Bottom Brewery downtown. Again, this will be our home for the pregame show. We're on the 4th floor rooftop. Come on up, say hey, as we are hanging out here. Mark Howard, Chris Sanders. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app. Welcome back to Rock Bottom Brewery out here downtown Nashville. Rock Bottom Brewery, the pregame show. Mark Howard, Chris Sanders hanging out with you. And the inactives, we'll get those set for you here in just a second as the Titans get set to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Chris Sanders is awaiting the coin toss results.
I'm so ready, baby.
As far as the keys are concerned. Here's the inactives for the Titans. Out today, number 13 wide receiver Cam Batson.
Whoa.
Offensive lineman Dylan Radens. Tight end Tommy Hudson. Pass rusher Rashad Weaver.
What?
Defensive back Chris Jackson. Linebacker David Long Jr. And wide receiver Josh Reynolds is inactive today for the Titans. What are some shocking names there, Chris Sanders?
Weaver.
Josh Reynolds, inactive today. Rashad Weaver, inactive. Dylan Radens, and you two remember at the draft when I lost my bananas when they picked Dylan Radens, inactive today. What do we make of the Titans inactive?
Well, I wouldn't jump off a building yet over Dylan Radens. I think his learning curve, speaks for itself. I think the Titans knew this was going to be a redshirt year. And they're adjusting accordingly. That is sort of the way they roll. They haven't drafted a lot of sudden impact rookies, and Reynolds is definitely a case in point. But I'm pretty confident at some point this season you'll see him out there, probably at right tackle. I don't know why they play him at guard, but that doesn't surprise me at all. Reynolds did not, he was banged up a little bit in camp, didn't do a whole lot, and you got to put your best 53 out there.
Yeah. Weaver, who was most consistent on the defense in the preseason? I know it's just a preseason, but it was Weaver.
Yeah.
Weaver was all over the place. And I understand that you had depth at positions, but with that, what he did in the preseason, I'm going to figure out a way to get him on the field. He got strong hands. He could set the edge. He can do some things that we've been missing for the last couple of years. And then you have Reynolds. What's the difference between him and Fitzpatrick? Zero. I mean, I kind of expected that because what he did in the preseason. How many catches did he have in the preseason? Zero. How many yards did he have in preseason? Zero. How many touchdowns did he have? Zero. So I'm not surprised with that one, but I really am surprised with Weaver.
You really are all about the preseason stats for Josh Reynolds.
I mean,
Julio Jones didn't have a catch either.
Yeah, but he's proven. And
Josh Reynolds is to a certain extent.
Yeah, but the thing about it is I watched some of his videos. I watched some of the things he did. He's just not as explosive as I want him to be. Me and TD talk about this all the time about being explosive because being explosive off the line of scrimmage, and I just didn't see it. There's no difference between him and Fitzpatrick.
I do think the Titans are disappointed with what they've gotten out of Josh Reynolds so far. I mean, I think and I said this after the first practice at Tampa Bay, that it was obvious to me that Chester Rogers was further ahead than he was as far as Tannehill's trust was concerned, and the Titans clearly going in that route. Plus, what does Josh Reynolds do for you on special teams is another element to all of this. But I mean, I would be a little concerned about Reynolds. It's not the end of the world. I'm not, Chris is treating him like he's Kevin Pamfield at wide receiver. I'm not ready to get there. The one guy, there were two guys in 5 years of doing radio with Floyd. There were two Titan players he couldn't stand. Pamfield and Darren Bates. And his problem with Darren Bates was Darren Bates took his helmet off during a preseason game, and Floyd wanted to cut him right then and there. Inactive today for the Cardinals, Chris Strevler, running back Eno Benjamin, Luke Barco, Tay Gowen, and Joshua Miles. I don't even know who any of those guys are. So the Arizona Cardinals aren't missing much. You brought up Weaver. I do think about this when I see that Rashad Weaver is inactive. What is the depth at outside linebacker so that Harold Landry is not playing 95% of the snaps today? And we know Derek Roberson will be out there.
Right.
But other than that, is there enough of a rotation for them to keep guys in and out?
Well, I think it's going to be primarily those three guys, and it'll be interesting to see. I think David Long is sort of an underrated loss today.
He's got a hamstring.
Yeah, a guy who has really come on. He's a great tackler, and the fact of the matter is, I think they're going to miss him today. Maybe I think you're going to notice his absence more than you would Weaver's.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched him, Weaver, and what he did in the preseason. I know I said a little bit before, but, man, he just brings something to that defense. I understand that there's different guys that are going to be put in there, but I'm going to figure out a way to get him on the field, especially with some of the rotation. Get him in there about, 10 and 12 plays a game just so he can make some impact. So it's just kind of, mind-boggling. I'm not the coach. I'm not disrespecting any coach. But what he did in the preseason, I'm a winner of what he done.
I thought it was a no-brainer that Weaver was going to be. I mean, This is me. I was a no-brainer. Weaver was going to be in there, and he was going to be in the mix. And I'm shocked to see all the other guys. Even Reynolds, I'm disappointed that Reynolds isn't active, but I'm not shocked by it. Weaver's the one that I look at and I'm like, whoa, that seemed to be a little surprising. Time now to take a look at Mike Vrabel's key to the game. Mike Vrabel's keys presented by Hillside Medical Clinic. The inactives list and Mike Vrabel's keys to the game are brought to you every week by the Hillside Medical Clinic. Mike Vrabel asked, what key is he stressing to the players going into week one?
It's not, going out there. We never want to beat ourselves, but there's just so much that happens in week one. We're just around the National Football League, and you watch and you see that even last night, the turnovers and the situation.
Chris, what do
Yes.
you make of that? You've had many week ones in your career, and the idea that kind of anything can happen, teams can throw things at you. What do you make of it?
I mean, what he's really talking about, I know there's a lot of co-star, but I'm going to put it plain so we can understand. Basically, he just wants to have rhythm on offense, no turnovers, and on defense, get some 3-and-outs. And that's kind of what I alluded with before I started, saying all this is about starting fast. You have to start fast. You want to have rhythm on offense. You want to get a 3-and-out on defense, and that's exactly what he stressed. And also he stressed about, not making mistakes on special teams. I mean, I know that sounds kind of cliche and all those great things, but that can lose you a game. You want to start fast on offense. You want to have the rhythm, get your receivers involved, have a good running game, and get a 3-and-out, and then now you can start having more productive things later on in the game.
Yeah, you don't want to lose special teams, and we can talk about kick coverage, and that seemed to be an emphasis for the Titans. And we'll see what they get on kick returns with Chester Rogers.
Go.
But I'm not worried about Brett Kern. Badgley, it's going to be interesting to see. It would be appropriate if the game comes down to one of his kicks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wait to see your face on Monday.
I said to John Robinson before the AFC Championship game, he came on the show, and I asked him, because Greg Joseph was the team's kicker for like the last 7 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And Tannehill was so good that they never had to kick. And so I'm sitting here like, this is the AFC Championship game. And I said to John Robinson, give him the show, I go, 42 yards to win it, trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Greg Joseph goes out there. How nervous are you? And, John Robinson said, let it rip, Tater Chip, and whatever. And I said to Floyd off the air, I said, how nervous? He goes, you could have the best kicker in the league, and if it's 42 to the Super Bowl, you're going to be nervous. He said if it's 42 in this guy to the Super Bowl, you're going to be real nervous. And I think about Badgley. I'm not that worried about Badgley because the guy, I just know this. Anything 40-plus is a question mark. Right. Anything inside of 40 he's going to hit. Maybe that changes your mind of what you do on a 4th and 2. Right. At that point. But TD's at the stadium. He'll join us in a little bit, and we'll see what Badgley's range is right now. But I think that anything inside of 40, you can feel comfortable with.
And there's a lot we don't know. We don't know if Gostkowski has totally lost interest with coming back.
Well, here's what I've heard. I'll tell you what I heard. I heard that Gostkowski is not happy with the way that the Titans this offseason kind of approached it with a, let's go with the young guys. And then he wanted to come in and camp, and he wanted to get a camp in where he's kicking in the preseason because he didn't feel like he got that last year. And then they, didn't call. And then, and I think, too, a guy like Gostkowski, if he's on your roster week 1, he's guaranteed for the season. Badgley, 3 years of experience in the NFL, not guaranteed for the season for him to be on the roster today.
Yeah, if you really care, you'd call.
but it's not just what the field goals that I'm concerned about too. I mean, look at Chester Rogers. Now he's in a position to where the Tennessee Titans really, really need him. I mean, when's the last time he's been in this position to where he's won the outright, punt return? Mm-hmm. So that's a concern too. I mean, it's a whole different environment. It's a whole different city. It's a whole different stadium. So what is he going to do? So it's not just the kick return. I mean, just the field goal.
Teron Davenport will join us live at Nissan Stadium. We'll do that coming up next. We are live from Rock Bottom Brewery on the other side of the river as we get you set for Titans and Cardinals. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. FreedomTireGuys.com, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at FreedomTireGuys.com. We are live at Rock Bottom Brewery downtown. Jared Stillman, Mark Howard, Chris Sanders, and we are joined now by Teron Davenport, presented by Freedom Tire Guys. So, TD, let's start with the obvious. How exciting is it for opening day? Fans are going to be back in the stadium. How exciting is it? And these two teams get ready to play today.
TD, first of all, I want to ask, how concerned are you that this offense as a whole, we really didn't see them play together very much during training camp and in the preseason? All right, it's going to be hot today. Julio had some injury issues in the preseason during camp. Do you think he's on a pitch count today?
Yep.
Diddy, you did not have to do him like that.
Wow. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about the defense. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals have some firepower. They got Hopkins, Green, Kristen Kirk, Isabel, and we got Rondell. How in the heck is Shane Bowen going to stop this empowered defense? Oh, absolutely. And then you alluded to Dupree earlier. Just looking at him warm up, can he realistically finish a whole game? Because we talked about when he was at Pittsburgh how explosive he was. Do you still see that explosive while he was warming up today? Yes, sir.
Teron Davenport with us, presented by FreedomTireGuys.com. TD, what has the money badger, Michael Badgley, what has he looked like? He's going to be the kicker today, elevated from the practice squad or signed to the active roster with Sam Ficken going on IR. We know he's hit everything inside of 40 in his career. How has he looked in warm-up so far? TD, what did you make of Rashad Weaver being inactive today? We were kind of stunned. We were more stunned about Weaver being inactive than we were about Reynolds being inactive today.
TD, I'm excited about the Titans D-line, the additions they made, not only Autry, but the emergence of T.R. Tart in his second year. And, of course, Jeffrey Simmons seems poised for a big year. But what about that matchup today? Because I think that's going to be huge because it'll dictate pressure, it'll dictate coverage.
Yeah.
What about Ferkser, who worked on his body in the offseason? He's gotten better every year. TD, you and I and Rex Road and everybody else, Jared and Chris, and, we're screaming for them to bring in Ertz or another more experienced tight end. But what about the opportunity that he'll be presented with, given how you figure defenses are going to cover the receivers?
Hey, I want to talk a little bit about offensive line. I'll be real quick. Are you concerned about the right tackle position with Quisenberry winning that position? Yeah. Right. And this question is for Jared. I mean, I'm saying it to you, but this is for Jared. Tell him how important the coin toss is. Thank you. My guy.
He's saying he'd go on defense.
No, you did not say you'll go on defense. You said how important the coin toss was, right? Absolutely. First go. TD,
He said put the defense out there. There you go.
No, he didn't, TD. I can always count on you, my guy.
TD, we appreciate you. Have a good one today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. You'll be with Darren, Donick, and Chase, as always, and all throughout the week.
Appreciate you, Doc.
Yep. Teron Davenport, he is the best. Presented by FreedomTireGuys.com, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at FreedomTireGuys.com. Chris, you didn't even listen to what he said.
Yes, I did.
He said before you said.
Oh, my God.
He said, I'm a defense guy, so I'm, put the defense out there and let Derrick Henry get the work. Yes, he did.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. He said you want to have Henry to set the tone.
No, he said sometimes you will.
TD, can we call him back, dangummit?
No, we cannot.
I'm just kidding.
Mark Howard, your thoughts on Chris Sanders
Oh, my God.
and his belief in the coin toss?
I think he believes what he wants to believe.
Oh, God.
I think
I just know that Rabel, always preferred defense first.
I think there's a
He's a
stat. We
defensive
looked this up
guy.
last year, and it was like 53% of the time, the team that wins the coin toss and gets the ball wins the game. So it's like so minuscule, like 50.3 or something like that. And Chris was over here all last year convinced that the coin toss was the key. And I don't think you're ever going to unconvince Chris
You're
Sanders
fired.
of that. I know. See, there you go. Coming up next, our picks to click. Who's going to click on the offensive side of the ball for the Titans? Who's going to click on the defensive side of the ball for the Titans? We'll do that coming up next as we are live from Rock Bottom Brewery. Again, this will be our home for every home Titans game for the pregame show throughout the entire 2021 season. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app. Time to pick and click, presented by Parman Tractor, our official sponsor of Picks to Click. Mark Howard is new to this, but it was funny. Just talking with some fans that have always stopped by during the pregame show, big fans of the GMs. There was no segment that the GM made more difficult
Oh, my gosh.
than Picks to Click. Because every time it was like, all right, give us an offensive player who's going to click, give us a defensive player who's going to click, and explain why on each one. And then he'd sit there and say, I'm going to go with the interior offensive line today as my pick to click. Or I'm going to go with Dean Pease as my pick to click today. And
Well, you can't do that.
Every time it was that way. But it is time for us to pick to click. Who's got a click today against the Arizona Cardinals? Chris Sanders,
Yes,
as
sir.
always. We start with you on the offensive side of the ball. Who do you have to click?
I'm going to go with Ryan Tannehill. And the reason why I'm going with Ryan Tannehill because he's a general. All he got to do is put the ball in any vicinity of A.J. Brown or Julio Jones or Ferguson, and they're going to make the play. So it all depends on him protecting the football, throwing the ball in the right place, and just handing the ball to Henry. I think he's going to be the main factor of the game, Tannehill.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Derrick Henry.
Oh, God.
I just think he's frothing at the mouth. He's tired of running in the sand pits and uphills and, not really, participating in even a live practice. So I think he's going to be loaded.
So I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to change up a little bit. Julio Jones. And the only reason I picked Julio was because you picked Tannehill, you picked Henry. Someone's got to take Julio. I'm going to take Julio today. I do think that Julio didn't like it in Atlanta, and Atlanta was ready to get rid of Julio. And they had to get rid of Julio because of the money, and they knew they weren't going to be any good. The Titans have invested a lot into Julio Jones, and I think that Julio Jones knows that. And I think that the respect that the Titans paid Julio by taking on the full salary and being the only team in the league that was willing to give up a second-round pick for him, I think he feels that he owes the Titans something. So I think you're going to see Julio Jones today go out there, and I think he's going to prove to us why he is the best receiver of the last decade in the NFL. And so Arizona's got suspect corners. This should be a big game if they can keep Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt off of Ryan Tannehill. To Mark's point earlier, if they can keep in the play action, I think it's going to be a huge game for A.J. Brown, but especially Julio Jones. And let's not forget, 8 touchdowns in the red zone last year for Jonnu Smith. He's gone. I expect Julio to be a focal target of Ryan Tannehill's in the red zone.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Defensive side of the ball, Chris Sanders.
I am going with Bud Dupree. I mean, if you look at last year where the Tennessee struggled, is they struggled to get to the passer. They only had 19 sacks last year. We brought Bud Dupree to come in and try to not just get sacks, but pressure the quarterback. I think if he has a big day and puts pressure on Kyler Murray, I think the Tennessee Titans can be successful on defense.
And just continuing the grand tradition of newly acquired Titans who are great in week 1. Cameron Wake had, 2.5 sacks?
Stop it, man.
Cameron
Never heard
Wembley,
from him again.
Cameron Wembley, I think, had a good week 1.
Holy cow.
That's what
Remember
encouraged me.
Cameron
I
Wake?
remember him, big swole dude.
Jim Washburn, the former Titans D-line coach, was so excited about him coming here. Well, wasn't a lot left in the tank.
He gave you one good week.
I'm going to say Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's going to bat down balls, wreak havoc, maybe even get an A-gap sack.
I'm going to go with Amani Hooker. And Amani Hooker led the Titans last year in interceptions. He's been elevated into a starting role. Kenny Vaccaro out. And I will say this, having gone to a bunch of training camp practices, Hooker kept making plays. I think he's got a natural ball hawk in him, which is why they loved him so much coming out of Iowa. They put him out on the field a lot as a rookie in the last year. Now he's out there. I think that the Titans' plan is to drop a lot back, as Mark would say, that mash defense, and then try to get Kyler to do something that he doesn't want to do. And it's going to be up to Amani Hooker to be there to make him pay for making a mistake in today's game. So I'm going to go with Amani Hooker.
I like that pick. I mean, just like you said, he's a ball hawk. He's always around the ball. So if he slips up and get a couple of picks today, that can be very, very outstanding for the Titans.
I'm going to say this. Now, I mean, Mark went with, Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry, arguably the 2 best players on the team. But
I like the jab.
If we were talking about Chris's picks to click, if we were picking the Chicago Bulls, Chris would have said, I'm going to pick Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Ryan Tannehill and Bud Dupree.
Look at his. He's got Henry.
Hey, I went with Amani Hooker.
How could you not take Henry today?
How'd you not take Tannehill?
That's true. Expand it to 3 picks to click. Then,
Absolutely.
maybe. I
There
don't
you
know.
go. Those are our picks to click presented by Parman Tractor. Again, all throughout the season, our friends at Parman Tractor and Equipment will be bringing you picks to click. One thought on the Arizona Cardinals about today's game is this is a team. Every year, there's some team that comes out of nowhere. Last year, the Buffalo Bills, now they had made the playoffs the year before, but Josh Allen ascended from a guy who was a passenger with a great defense to a possible league MVP. We saw Lamar Jackson do that 2 years ago. We saw Patrick Mahomes come out of nowhere in 2018. Then we've seen guys like Derek Carr and Carson Wentz have seasons like that. If Kyler was going to break out, and I'm not a huge Kyler Murray fan, but if Kyler Murray was going to break out, Cliff Kingsbury was going to break out to prove himself as coach of the Cardinals, it feels to me, Mark Howard, like this would be the season, and for some reason that bothers me a little bit.
Well, it should, and they're taking a risk. How much does AJ Green have left? That's a big question. Larry Fitzgerald was really good almost to the end, and you also look at J.J. Watt. How much greatness does he have left in him? There always seems to be an injury issue with him. It's hard for him to stay on the field for a whole season. 17 games is a tall order for a guy like J.J. Watt. But this is game one. He's played well against the Titans.
Yeah.
Boy, has he ever. So that's going to be, to me, an interesting storyline today.
I think with Kyle Murray is everybody's talking about he's too short, he doesn't have the arm strength and all these things. All he is a running quarterback. So the one thing I'm concerned about, he has something to prove. He has an edge because everybody's saying what he cannot do. Last year he threw for almost 4,000 yards, 3,917, and then he had 819 yards rushing. So it shows you that if he can improve on that, then now he becomes being the mid-road of being a great quarterback to being with the echelon in the top 10. So he has a lot to prove. Everybody's talking about what he can do, and you don't believe, as an athlete, you hear that stuff, you start to develop an edge. And if he starts to develop edge with his athleticism and picks up his arm strength, you never know.
I'm not a huge believer in the Arizona Cardinals, but I'll say this. If you told me that you had gone to the future and that they finished second in the NFC West this year, or that they make the playoffs in the NFC West this year, I don't think I'd call you crazy if that's what happens with this team. I mean, I think they're going to finish fourth in that division. I think it's a great division, but they are kind of a weird, kind of like the Oilers 8-8. All of a sudden, add a Javon Curse, 13-3, and in the Super Bowl.
But it's the unknown. It's just the unknown of what's going to happen. I mean, just like you said, when we were 8-8 for three years in a row, I think 9-7. Then all of a sudden in 1999, Steve McNair burst out. Is it going to be the same thing with the Arizona Cardinals? That all of a sudden, okay, Kyler Murray just takes over this offense and be the leader of this team, like what Steve McNair did with us? Hey, that's a scary scene.
Mark Howard, today Ryan Tannehill goes out there, voted the 83rd best player in the NFL by his own peers of the top 100. By the way, Kyler Murray in the same poll, 39th in the NFL. And I know, I see the head shake. I do feel like there's a lot for Tannehill to prove.
Yeah, I think for some reason the players in the NFL are just enamored with Kyler Murray because he's sort of the new thing. But Kyler Murray hasn't, he's done some, but Ryan Tannehill's stats are much better. So let's get that out of the way. I feel really good with Tannehill. People can take their shots at him, and he's not this, he's not that. He's a good downfield thrower. We'll see him, I'm sure, taking some shots to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I think he'll be just fine.
I think the one thing that the fans that we struggle with is when it comes to the big game and Henry's not in there and he has to make the play, he hasn't made the play. The one game against Kansas City and against Baltimore, he had to become a passer because they were getting put in third and long, and he didn't make the big play. So I think if we can get past that hump, I think he'll be okay.
And I also think, too, Jared, that having a healthy Taylor Lewan on the left side, really helps Tannehill, helps his peace of mind. I think they'll do okay against the Arizona pass rush. I really do. I know they're going to load up, probably on the side of Questenberry, but I think Tannehill and the Titans will do okay there.
Yep.
On the other side, we'll get Chris Sanders' keys to the game. Plus, we'll take a look at the sports books, what they're telling us, and we'll make our official Week 1 picks, and we will do that coming up next. We are live again, Rock Bottom Brewery downtown across from Nissan Stadium, where, again, the Titans will open up with the Arizona Cardinals. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Titans and Cardinals live at Nissan Stadium coming up at noon on CBS. We're live from Rock Bottom Brewery, downtown Nashville for the pregame show. Once again, Mark Howard, Chris Sanders with me. It should be noted, Jerome Boger will be today's referee.
Oh.
The one
he loves to call penalties.
The one official that Floyd Reese actively said should be thrown out of the NFL. And when he said it, and he was never a headline guy, and when he said it, I thought he's trying to get Mike Florio or someone to write an article, former NFL GM says they should get rid of Jerome Boger. And he said to me, it's not that I wanted them to write it, it's that I didn't care if they did. So Jerome Boger, who cost the Titans in Week 1 3 years ago by taking down a Derrick Henry 80-yard touchdown run against the Dolphins, Jerome Boger on the call today. Time now for Chris Sanders, keys to the game. What are the keys for a Titans victory, Chris Sanders, outside of the obvious coin toss?
I just think number one, on offense, they have to start fast. You have to get your playmakers involved early. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Henry. Get those guys in rhythm, get those guys getting touches early and put pressure on the defense. And then our defense, what was the Achilles heels of the defense last year was getting off on third down. If we can get off on third down and get the offensive ball, I think we can be successful. And then the last thing is we got to be sound on special teams. I know Chester Rogers is going to be the punt return, which he's going to make some plays. But the only thing that concerns me is the field goal kicking. Is we got Bagley there. I know he's 30 from 30 for 49 yards inside the 40. I think if we can do those three things in those three phases, I think the Tennessee Titans can be successful.
I did think it was funny when TD said, well, I just saw John Robinson give him the fist bump, so I think John Robinson feels good about what he saw. I think at TD, I think that's the prayer fist bump from John Robinson saying, Lord, please be with this kicker today as Michael Badgley goes out there for the Titans. Time now to take a look at the sports books. What does the latest action say? The FanDuel Sportsbook update. Again, the latest odds on today's game are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, and my official sportsbook app. Today, the Titans are favored -2.5. The number was 3. It's dropped down to 2.5. The Titans on the money line -138. The Cardinals are +118, and the over-under 53.5 points. Surprised by that?
That's a rut row number, to be honest with you. 2.5 is not a good number.
Especially with the kicker.
Well, not just that, but it means that the Sharps really like Arizona. And I hate to say it, in a betting situation, I would take Arizona +3 or +3.5.
Oh.
I just have a bad feeling about this game.
I just think that the concerns of the defense. I mean, everybody knows the firepower that the Tennessee Titans have is still question marks about the defense. You got Farley that has a back issue. You have Dupree who's coming off the knee injury. You have a secondary that's given up 36 touchdowns last year. So just like the bettors are thinking, oh, did the defense improve? And if the defense improved, I may take it back. But right now there's too many question marks.
Do you feel like in today's game, 53.5 for these two teams, that doesn't seem like – I mean, I think we're going to see some points scored today. So when I hear 53.5 or whatever is the number, that makes me a little nervous because we know the Titans are going to go score points.
Yes.
And I got to think Arizona's going to score points too with a Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray offense.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. There's going to be a lot of points scored, but I think it's going to come down to, who has the least amount of turnovers. I mean, I know that's kind of coach talk and cliches, but it's going to come down who makes the least amount of turnovers. Because if you look at both offenses are explosive. Both have good quarterbacks. Both have explosive receivers. Both have great running backs. Not great running backs the Tennessee Titans do, but the Arizona Cardinals are just solid. So it's going to be a lot of points scored. So it's going to come down to who executes, who has rhythm, and who has the least amount of turnovers.
I think it's going to be resilience. I think 53 points tells you that the Titans defense is going to have its hands full today. They're going to give up some plays, maybe give up some touchdowns, and you just got to once again. I hate to quote Butch Jones, but snap and clear and just move on, to the next play. Turn the page, and Tannehill and Murray in the fourth quarter could really end up being exciting.
How do you feel about these player props, Mark? Derrick Henry over under 99.5 yards today.
Oh.
Yeah, I like him to go over. That is a really high number, though.
So how about this? Remember how Chris was worried about the running game for Arizona? Chase Edmonds over under 37.5.
Yeah.
James Conner over under 27.5.
There you go.
I mean,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can you bet the coin toss on here? I'm trying to see if there's a.
If the Arizona Cardinals win the coin toss and they go down there and score quickly and they just blow us out, I'm gonna blame it on you.
Oh, hey, you know what? If they lose the toss and they lose, I'll be glad to take it. That's a look at the sports books. Again, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook app. The latest odds on today's game are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook app. Time now for our final game picks. Who wins today and why? And our final game picks are presented by Social Furniture, brought to you every single week by Social Furniture, located at 5412 Charlotte Avenue in West Nashville. Shop local, shop social. I'm just going to tell a story here. A couple of years ago in 2019, we got off to a start keeping track of who got each game right, who got. At one point, I think Chris was 6-3, and I was, 5-4 or something like that. And Floyd was like a solid 0-9. Every game he picked wrong. So he decided to try to switch the mojo. He would pick against the Titans every week by a final score of 41-40. So I'm going to go first today, and I'm going to pick the Arizona Cardinals 41-40 to win today. Because I remember I hated it, Mark, because I'd be like, hey, we're trying to pick the game here. And he'd go, Texans 41-40, Panthers 41-40. So give me the Cardinals in a nod to the GM, 41-40.
I'll take the Titans to win, Arizona to cover, 30-28.
I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans in honor of Floyd, 35-34, because of the 1 point.
To the 1 point.
Yeah, just the 1 point.
To the one. You should make it 36. You should make it 36-35. You know why?
Why?
Because 22 years ago today, the Tennessee Titans played the Cincinnati Bengals in the first ever game at Nissan Stadium.
I was there.
And won 36-35.
And that was the year we went
So
I was there too. It's I think Chris was there.
I
can't remember.
kind
I
of.
was,
36-35.
What were
There
you
it
in a
is.
stroller?
I had to stand up on the seat because everybody in front of me would stand up.
Oh, my
So in
gosh.
order to like get a view of like what was going on, I had to
Hilarious.
stand up on the seat and then kind of like look.
How
up
many
at the
people around you
Jumbotron.
told your parents, can you tell your kid to shut up?
Oh my goodness! So you see, the thing was back then I didn't really even know anything about football.
Yeah.
I went to one game at Vandy, and I told my dad I'm not coming back to that. Call me when the new stadium opens. I went to the Bengals game, then I went to the Browns game in week 2, and then I was biggest Titans fan of all time after 2 games.
Let's go, baby.
That's going to do it for us. We are out of here again. We will be back for the pregame show. We'll be at the Corner Pub in Cool Springs starting at 1 o'clock with a special late kickoff next week as the Titans take on Seattle. Everybody enjoy the game on CBS. For Mark Howard, for Chris Sanders, it's been the pregame show live from Rock Bottom in downtown Nashville on ESPN 102.5 The Game.